So you've heard it said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And today I'm here to say there used to be a thing called dignity. I'm going to run through the questions of what it is, what I think is missing, and how changes can be made and how they can be applied. So you've heard it said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, I had a look around and it seems it comes from a speaker called Jim Rohn, who I think is an excellent speaker, really great thinker who was ahead of his time. But over the recent years, I've heard it circulating increasingly amongst self-improvement and lifestyle design kind of people. So almost like the fish that swim around Tim Ferris and alike. But the central idea, as far as I can tell, is that self-improvement's really difficult, personal relationships are really difficult, and this phrase, you are the average, is almost like the crossroads of those two. That if you want to move your life forward, if you want self-improvement, that there's only so far you can go on your own, that your personal relationships will have an impact on those. And, think back, probably one of your parents used to tell you don't hang out with him or her because they're a bad influence. You should hang out with this person instead, who's a good influence on you. And so it's kind of already built into the way that we see the world. But I sort of think of it, more simply as on the playground at school, there's like little circles of people sort of in the centre, in the corners, and they all form their little cliques. And over time, they start sounding more like each other, start looking more like each other, and behaving more like each other. So it's almost inherent you probably are more like the average of people you spend time with. So I think it's fairly true. But the key concept here is to provoke you into thinking about who are those people. And if they're good people, they might improve your life. And if those are bad people, then it might make your life worse. And so the key idea is just thinking and being a bit more intentional about who you spend time with. So as a mental model, I think you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with is a really handy way to make a complex world more simple and to help you to make more simple decisions. And so now, why the things I don't like about the adage, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. See, I do quite like the model. I think it's kind of obvious. But there was always, and I'll be honest, I like the logic, but I'm not sure I really emotionally bought in. There was something that made me feel uncomfortable. And I thought, just trust it, let it come out. I think the real issue that I don't like about it is that it treats people, say your friends and your family, almost like you're trying to price up a used car. So we try and almost price up and work out how valuable our friends and family are. So how useful are they to me? How desirable are they to me? And placing a value on them according to that. And then leads me to the next question of, and if they're not useful, if they're not desirable, if they're dragging your average down, what do we do? Just like a used car, do we abandon them? And there's something in that just inherently feels wrong to me. And it reminds me of a book by one of my favourite authors, Jonathan Haidt, who wrote the book, The Righteous Mind. And in that one, he talks about how there are certain values that are almost built into every human being around the world. And you generally only find them when you push against them. And I think that's what's happening here, at least for me, but I'm thinking probably more than just me. So one of these key things that is inherent in people is the need for dignity. And it's only when he said the word dignity that I thought, well, we barely use that in the modern world, and we don't really hear it on the TV. I don't hear it very much in the modern world, and I don't think that we bear it in mind when we make our clinical or logical decision making. It's not part of the equation. And I think this adage, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, is in danger of being so clinical that it misses a key part of humanity out of the equation. But what happens to the people that don't make the cut? I mean, your friend who may have been by your side for years may not make that standard, your family member. And if you dismiss them, then they sort of trudge on home, maybe feeling terrible about themselves because they feel a lack of value, a lack of dignity, and spend probably a quiet and sad night forlornly alone by themselves. And do you really want that? And does that really suggest that you're improving yourself if you have that effect on people? And the other way of looking at it is that if you trample all over someone's dignity and make them feel low, they might remind you directly by punching you in the face. But more seriously, I guess that is quite a serious thing. Yeah, don't do that. More serenely. Yes, that's the word. But more seriously, we should bear dignity in mind. We shouldn't trample over people. Everyone has value, and their value shouldn't only be measured in how useful they are to us. I mean, I think one of the key points here is that the model's really good in that if you see the world in terms of good people and bad people, and if you can spend more time with good people, then your average moves in that direction. If you spend more time with bad people, then you move more in that direction. So I think it's a great way of avoiding toxic and harmful people. But what about the people in the middle? You know, not everyone can be an Elon Musk, a Roger Federer, Michelle Obama. What about the people in the middle who might be, if we're honest, like a little bit dull, a little bit negative, and maybe don't have the same imagination and ambition as you do? Those people are bringing down your average. But is it right to abandon them? So, what's my take on you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Well, personally, if it's not obvious, I actually think it's excellent. I think it's a great mental model that helps make a complicated world a lot more simple. It makes decision making that can be cluttered really simple, helps you see the world and be far more intentional about who you spend time with. Just like what your parents were trying to instill in you, if you spend more time with good people, then your life might get better. And if you spend more time with the bad people, then don't be surprised if your life is dragged down. Just my question is, what about the people in the middle? Asking ourselves some more questions. Why are we so sure of ourselves? Why are the way we look at things so self-centered? And also, why are we trying to value everyone by how useful they are to us? And shouldn't we just value them for being them? So back to our guy, Jim Rohn, who came up with, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think the central message here is that people are important. So if people are important, then we should choose who we spend our time with wisely. But since people are important, we should also treat people with dignity.